Well, here we are again with my favorite tree guy. I have Kayla here and I have Dave here, and we are going to do some more tree trimming today. So I kind of feel like this is a public service announcement because taking care of your trees, good maintenance is so important, and included in that, of course, is good tree pruning. And I have a certified arborist here who's going to tell us about those best practices. Now, we did a video, was that last week, you guys?
2 weeks ago.
Two weeks ago, okay, on doing some pruning on my oak trees, which is fine on small trees. Some of you questioned that, but on small trees, believe me, he knows what he's doing. But today we have a different kind of pruning, and that is getting some limbs away from the roof of my house and my garage. Now, before we get started, because so many people asked us for Dave's information, I'm going to just stand away here. Gosh, I feel like, I don't know. Call us at 405-568-0005. Anyhow, that's how you can get hold of Dave. You know how to get hold of Kayla if you need tree work or something. So we are going to show you what it looks like before. We have two kinds of trees that we're going to be pruning on, correct?
Correct, three.
Three, okay,
Yes,
three, excuse me. Okay, starting with the soapberry.
Right, so the soapberry right there on the corner of the house. We've got a lot of low-hanging limbs that are touching the roof line on the neighbors and on your house.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to be doing is getting all of the stuff that is hazardous to the homes pulled back, get the weight and the shape and the future growth pattern of the tree set, the weight distribution, do some thinning, and kind of promote the future growth of that tree and make it where there's zero hazards to your house, your shingles, your fascia, things that can cause damage to your home.
Okay.
And also for your insurance company. They'll
be happy.
They appreciate
they
it.
will be happy.
Okay,
yeah. Okay, so right here, Stuart, right here,
Yep.
let's put a little bit of information about this native to the Southwest tree, a soapberry. Yes, you can indeed make soap, apparently, out of its berries. It is drought tolerant. It's a great pollinator, as evidenced by all of the flowers. And I don't know, I guess birds probably eat the seeds too. And even though they're interesting, and the littles in my neighborhood love to collect the soap berries because they look like little amber jewels, little amber raisins when they dry. Nevertheless, it's a little bit messy. So by cleaning it up, that will reduce some of the mess without taking down the tree, which is providing much needed shade. So I don't want to remove the tree in its entirety. I just want to do some due diligence on pruning it. So what do you say?
Let's get with it.
Let's do it. Okay, so first and foremost, because it makes me nervous, all precautions have been taken, all safety measures have been taken, and Ben definitely knows what he's doing. We've got Ben and Hannah here, and they are wearing protective gear, and like I say, they do know what they're doing. Kayla, you want to give us just an overview of how they're starting, and then I'm going to have Dave talk about the particulars.
Yeah, right now, so if you just kind of see up there, he's just using a handsaw. Dave can explain a little bit more about it because I actually asked him the question.
Okay.
But he's just thinning out some of that small stuff. We kind of refer to it as water growth,
Okay.
or sprouts. That's where he's starting. That's going to, in my opinion, Dave will correct me here in a minute. It's just going to expose part of the tree limb that is closer to the main trunk of the tree, right? Get some of that weight right in the center of it off. And I'll let Dave explain to you why he's doing that with a little handsaw versus hand pruners, because on a job I asked Dave that one time, and
typically what we do is it's not always feasible to get the chainsaw up there and be swinging around in tight quarters, and there's certain applications where it's good for and certain where it's easier to do it with the handsaw. That's probably a silky, or is that a silky?
Yes, sir.
So that being a silky, super sharp saw. I'm sure that it was cleaned before we did this prune. That way we don't transfer disease from one tree to another.
Excellent. Ooh, that was very satisfying. that one was very satisfying.
He'll go in and do the full interior trim. A lot of people, there's a lot of argument between trimming the interiors out on trees and lion tailing and things of that nature. Trees like this that are more it's more of a weed that grew into a tree.
Right.
Is what ended up happening. You know, making this aesthetically pleasing and making it safe in between these houses in such tight quarters is the most important thing. The tree's health is important. This tree is extremely resilient. It can take any abuse that we give it.
Okay. And it's something I like to call romancing the ordinary. This is a native tree. We sometimes refer to them as trash trees or trees that just volunteered themselves.
Right.
They came up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they don't have value, especially
absolutely.
for our local pollinators. And the fact that this is native is another reason that we want to preserve it. I love the fact that reducing all of just all of the rubbish in between there really cleans it up and exposes the architecture of the branches, especially in the wintertime. That's valuable because it gives great shadows.
Absolutely.
Great shadows. The other thing it will do is it will allow more light respectively into both of our homes.
You ever done yoga in a tree before?
I have not, but it looks like Ben is doing it. So talk to me about the safety equipment he does have.
So he'll have on a harness. He'll be tied into the tree with a rope, with a climbing rope. Anytime you're trimming a tree that is alive that you are not removing, you never use spikes or gabs.
Okay.
So this is spikeless pruning, and so what he'll do is he climbs, he raises himself up and down just off of his upper body strength on that rope, and it allows him to navigate through the entire tree. And
Pretty awesome.
you know, if anybody ever uses spikes on trimming your tree, they are not doing it correctly.
They're not doing it correctly.
No.
Okay, let me ask another question. So it's still, unbelievably, we've had so much rain. We took that into account before he came out to trim. He is working from a hard surface. There's concrete below him.
Yep.
The other thing is, let me ask you this. Pruning does force new growth. So doing this pruning now, are we going to get all sorts of new growth that's going to come out
You
on
will
this?
have new growth, absolutely.
Okay.
So any time you cut yourself, you're going to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we cut this tree, it's going to push new growth out.
Okay. Do we need to be careful about what percentage of this tree we are cutting off to make sure
we will
it's still
end up taking
photosynthesizing?
less than 30%.
Okay. As a general rule,
Yes.
less than 30%
Will
is
it
okay.
go berry crazy with what? Like,
No,
it won't produce more berries because
no,
of
it
the
will
tree?
not. Well, it cuts down on the amount of stuff that wind can catch. It cuts down on the amount of stuff come wintertime that ice storm can grab to and damage. There's a lot of pros to keeping your trees properly trimmed, and it's healthy for them. I mean,
Mine trimmed.
you know, when we have ice storms, when we have windstorms, when we have tornadoes, when we have droughts, when we have all of these things, that's nature's way of taking care of this stuff. You know what I mean? And so when we have total devastation, before tree trimming was a thing, these trees naturally pruned themselves. They may not have been aesthetically pleasing,
but they did prune
but
themselves.
they pruned
But
themselves.
over time it happened, right?
Absolutely. It
Okay.
falls out, yeah.
Well, we are going to leave Ben alone here. I think we got some pretty good footage of what he's doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll come back and hopefully
Yeah, we'll check back and it'll look completely different.
completely different. I do ask about the methodology of once he gets the little stuff out, removing the big branches. How's he going to get out there to do that? And what is he going to use
The
to
same way he's
reduce
doing
the
it now.
weight? Just the same way?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, well, it's a good thing he's flexible.
It is.
Okay, so we've got a couple of other things on our tree maintenance agenda, starting with some pretty nasty stubs that I've got on my trees in the back.
Yep.
And let's go take a look at those.
Okay.
Okay, now these stubs, stobs, whatever you call them on the tree, to me they look like nice footholds.
They do.
if you wanted to scale the tree. But tell me the reasons that this could be worrisome and why we need to address it.
Well, not so much worrisome, more along the lines of it looks better, it's cleaner on the tree, it allows the tree to heal over wherever those were instead of those dying off and getting rotten and getting infected, and then it protruding into the trunk of the tree.
Okay.
It's good to get them cut off flat where they can start to heal and scab over, as you can see is going on right there on that more teardrop shaped cut right above that small wire. it's best to get everything cut close to the tree. That way it can heal itself and begin as if it never had it happen before.
Right. And I think sometimes this happens also because we get so much tree damage in the winter time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think sometimes we just do the best we can
Absolutely.
to just remove them, and then you sometimes have to come back and do this kind of cleanup work. Is that fair to say?
That is, yes.
Because when we get these bad ice storms, these guys are the most popular people in town, which is another reason that I think it's always good. You know, you have your doctor, you have your dentist. I think it's sometimes good to have your own tree arborist or the person that you can call in the event that we have one of the many apocalyptic events that we have here in Oklahoma, because these guys are just indispensable. Now, you also noticed over here, in fact, you've noticed it every time you've come and you've been itching to get your hands on it, is this one limb that's hanging over the garage on this old hackberry tree, another
Correct.
native.
Yeah. And so what we'll do is we'll get that pulled back off the shingles and away from the house. Typically, being as close to the power line as that is, as you can see the tree is very one-sided. That is from your very good friends at the power company that seem to think that they have to completely destroy your trees in your backyard to keep their power line safe, which they do have a job to do, and it is required. But a lot of the time, once they come in and trim your tree, it's not always left in the proper condition it needs to be. So if in fact you have trees that you value and trees that you don't want to lose that are close to a power line, it's always good to get somebody to come out and make sure that they made the correct cuts, make sure they left the tree in the proper condition to where it can continue to grow and you can continue to have that investment tree, you know, be what you want it to be coming forward in the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the utility companies are doing butchering.
Yeah.
Rather
chopping.
Yes, than
Right.
chopping,
Yeah.
and you have to come back in and spend some of your own hard-earned
Absolutely.
cash to
Right.
get them beautiful.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to
Yeah.
have your electricity,
Right.
and they take a big load off of it. That way, you know, because then the work you're paying for is minimal.
But it's also well worth the money, and I try to tell my customers before the power company
comes
gets
out
here,
and butchers them.
have your arborist come out once a year.
Yes, if
And
they're power
look.
certified.
Yeah, and look at the trees on your property. And if you've got stuff that it's questionable whether the power company's going to take it or not, go ahead and pay your arborist to do it.
Yeah.
We know we're going to get clean equipment being used on your trees. The power company, they jump from yard to yard to yard to yard
And
to
could
yard.
care less. Yeah.
And they could
Yeah.
care less.
Yeah. So it's also a testament to, I guess, being very observant after they do cut their trees. Something else, because so many of you, and I am so sorry, you have texted me, you've emailed me. We have had such horrific storms this year, and many of you have lost prized trees. Some of you have even lost your homes. You know, my heart goes out to you. But I think it's one of these things that we want to do to preserve and protect not only our trees but our property. One last question: when it comes to insurance after things like that, will insurance
So there-
sometimes cover services such
There
as
are
yours?
a lot of different things that applies to. A lot of the time, doing prerequisite work to keep your trees in a healthy state, away from your home, away from hazards. Yes, it's good to get that done. That way that they can consistently reinstate your policy. And a lot of times they won't. They'll send you a notice saying, "Look, we need this tree
Trimmed and
out
removed.
of any way it can fall on the home." So
Okay.
you may have to get it removed. In Louisiana, they have a lot of pine trees. And a lot of people are big about their pine trees down there being close to their houses and the look and the shade on the home. And they lose insurance coverage because the insurance company will write
Wow.
them
Wow.
and say, "We're not going to insure your home unless you get this tree removed." And so we've done a lot of stuff like that. But when it comes to actual damage to the structure, if a tree falls on your home, and it's attached to your living structure. So, for example, you would need to have this building insured separately from your home if a tree fell on it because it's detached. But if it is attached to the dwelling and a tree falls on it, then I work directly with the insurance companies to get your tree removal
Okay.
and the cleanup paid for by the
Okay.
insurance company, where you're not out of pocket a large
And I
expense.
have read, and I don't know it's true, but these are all questions that you might want to ask your insurance agent. for example, at my former home, that 100-year-old oak tree, should I have ever lost that, a question to ask was, okay, this tree has provided significant monetary value to my home. Is it then covered? And those are questions that you might want to ask. And I don't know if you can get an insurance rider about that. I don't know. But those are things that, especially now that we're having these once every 100-year storms every other year, I think these are questions that you should ask your insurance agents in these precarious weather times. Okay, let's take a break here and let's go back and check on the process.
Very good.
Well, he's just about finished, and already it makes a huge, huge difference. By the way, they did remove anything that might be damaged underneath. They moved it out of the way, with the exception of things that were in the ground, but they are very careful about doing that. One last thing that I think it's important to point out. When we first moved into the cottage, I had a consultation with someone about my trees. It wasn't you, it was actually a state arborist. And we talked about the trees themselves, care over time, budgeting, all sorts of things. I think that's a good thing to do if you move into a new house and you have trees, especially in the house. If you have monster trees, you know, we in Oklahoma, we cherish our trees because they're few and far between and they don't get that large. But if you're in the Southeast, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, if you're in New England, I know many of you, many of my followers are from around the country. If you need help with monster trees or whatever, Dave would be happy to help you out. But I think it's good to spend the money on it, maybe on a per hour basis or whatever, to have a tree consultation.
Absolutely. And a lot of our tree consultations, so we travel to, you know, any state around North America with our crane and all of our equipment. And we can even do video consultations.
Okay.
So if you set up an appointment with me, we can go over it via FaceTime or via Skype and look at the tree and kind of do an assessment and see what needs to be done, or if anything needs to be done, or, you know.
Well, I know for a lot of you out there, it's intimidating if you haven't had tree work done. If you have just moved, it's intimidating, you don't know. And then I know it's sometimes frustrating because so many of the things I show are local. So again, as a public service, if you guys want to talk to Dave or whatever, then he can set up a consultation with you. But I think it's so important to take care of our precious trees. I know they are very near and dear to our hearts in Oklahoma, because here on the prairie, they truly are treasures, but they're treasures no matter where you live. So let's do what we can to preserve and protect our trees. And we'll just leave with that beautiful shot of the after.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.